tell us about Heist Society, your newest release. It is out. Is it out now already?
It is out, yes. It's out in the U.S. and Australia. It's coming out internationally, you know, kind of as we go. It's my brand new series, and I'm really excited about it. I've always loved con men movies like The Sting and Ocean's 11 and Thomas Crown Affair, and that's just always been a genre that I've really, really gravitated toward. And one day I was driving around in my car, and I was listening to a book on tape, and there was a line in the book that said I was like a cat burglar in my own house. And immediately I told myself I have to write a book about a girl named Kat who's a burglar. And so then that kind of, you know, spiraled a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I thought, well, you know, this is my con man movie or book that I've always wanted to write. And so I said, you know, I want to do a girl who's raised in a family of con men and art thieves, and she really wants to leave the family business, but they keep sucking her back in. And so that was the origin of Heist Society, and it was just the most fun book to write. I'm working on Heist 2 right now.
Nice.
And I'm very optimistic about this series. It's been a lot of fun.
One of my favorite things about it is how her high school experience is way more exciting than mine. Like, I feel like most kids, when you're a teenager, you're like totally bored and you're just waiting for something to happen, and she's like flying all over the world and getting into all these adventures, and yet all she wants is to have the boring.
I know. It's, you always want what
can
you
never
can't
be
have.
happy.
Exactly.
You can never
the grass
be happy.
is always greener. That was one of the most fun things about it to me, was looking at it in the terms of, this is a girl who's living most teenage girls' fantasies. You know, her best friend is a billionaire hot guy.
Super hot.
and he's like, sure, we'll get on my private jet and go to Rome tonight. And so that's very fun. But, you know, she wants the nuclear family, and she wants to spend more than one night in the same place. And she's never known that. So it's very, very different. Plus, I think that, you know, she has grown up with a very gray sense of right and wrong.
When you were researching this book, you learned a lot about Holocaust art. So what's the most interesting factoid you learned?
Probably, well, first of all, I think a lot of American teens today have forgotten that this went on, or have never been educated about this. That, you know, the Nazis weren't just about, you know, cleansing Europe and taking over Europe. They were also about, you know, formulating the great museums, and they wanted everything to kind of flow through them.
Right.
One of the most interesting things that I learned was there were certain artists that the Nazi soldiers had, you know, orders to plunder and pillage anything that they found by these people, and there were certain ones that they were just supposed to burn in the street. So that was something that I really wanted to use in the book, that, you know, if they were going to have something that they found that was Holocaust art, it couldn't be a Picasso because Picassos were burned. And
interesting.
So there were certain things that were definitely approved and unapproved, and it wasn't just all classic art that we look at and admire today.
Right. So do you think great art belongs in somebody's house or in a museum?
That's a tough question. I think that probably I would love for it to be shared by the world, but I know that that's really not practical, and that there's, you know, when you look at especially, you know, artists like Monet, there are a lot of those out there, and so I don't think there's anything wrong with a few people having their own private Monets, as long as the world can share in the vast majority.
If you could have one painting for you in your house.
Ooh, I don't know. There are a couple of Renoirs that I really like.
Is he your favorite?
Probably, but I don't know that much about art. I really, really don't. What little I know, I learned to write this book, and that was one of the most fun things. And as I work forward in the series, I'm kind of becoming a very, very, very minor expert on a lot of different things. Like in Heist 2, they're going after rare gems, and so in every different book, I'm thinking that there's probably going to be something else that they're chasing down.
Oh, cool!
And that's a lot of fun. So
you learned about gemologists. I was saying that sounds like a made-up profession.
It does, doesn't it?
Somebody gives you a business card, you're like, that's fake.
No, exactly. And, you know, especially when you look at ancient things, because now the gems that we think of as being the most precious now, you know, are actually kind of semi-precious in terms of how rare they are in the world.
Oh, really?
Yes, like diamonds are technically semi-precious, but the De Beers Corporation holds so many of them in reserve that there aren't that many actually in circulation.
Isn't that so interesting that like diamonds are precious because like we all agree to pay a lot for them?
Exactly.
It's kind of bananas.
Yeah.
So what really are the precious stones?
You know, I don't know. I know that I basically have been looking at like ancient Egypt, and diamonds and sapphires and those things wouldn't have even been on a pharaoh's radar. They were more into like topaz and emeralds.
So did they know that they existed, or they just weren't that impressive?
I think they probably didn't know they existed, because those were originally mined in like India and other regions of the world. Yeah.
Cool.